We are losing freedom in the world. 80% of people in the globe live in non-free or partially free societies. This means that people who have a real right to vote, for whom they want to vote, who have a real right to say what they want to say, who have a real right to choose to love whatever their heart tells them to choose and to love, these people are minority. And the problem is not just in fact that in authoritarian countries the space for freedom is shrinking to the size of the prison cell. The problem is that even democracies, people start to put into question the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and there are reasons for this, because current generations, they inherited democracy from their grandparents. They start to take their freedom for granted. They consider freedom as a possibility to make a choice between different kind of cheeses in supermarket. But freedom is very fragile. And first, what we all have to do, we have start to defend our freedom. We have no right to leave this problem for our children. And this is our problem, this is our challenge, this is a challenge of current generation. It's our historical responsibility. We can't transfer it to politicians, to international organizations, to someone else. People have power, we must act.
This moment matters. This moment, what you do now, will determine the world we live in. At the UN, I talked about the mother of all battles that we need to fight, and that's for information integrity, knowing the difference between what's fact, what's fiction, right? Because right now, the technology that rules our lives doesn't distinguish between either one. And they actually prioritize the spread of lies. They prioritize the lies. So without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. This is all being destroyed, and without that, you don't have a shared reality. You can't solve any problem. You can't have journalism. You can't have democracy. And people can be easily, insidiously manipulated. That is the beginning of the breakdown of agency, electoral integrity. The reason why VDEM said, as of March this year, 78% of the world now is under authoritarian rule. We are electing illiberal leaders democratically. But here's the biggest thing. The biggest problem is that the institutions that should be defending rule of law aren't working. Impunity, whether it's in the physical world, whether it's Putin or Netanyahu or Sudan or you name the dictator, it starts with a breakdown of facts. But that impunity needs to stop. And it is mirrored in the virtual world by the CEO of tech companies that are changing our world. So the question is for you. What are you willing to sacrifice for the truth? Your answer will determine the world we live in.
We know from our own experience how unpunished evil grows. All this hell which we now face in Ukraine is the result of total impunity which Russia enjoyed for decades. Russian troops committed horrible crimes in Chechnya, in Moldova, in Georgia, in Mali, in Libya, in Syria, in other countries of the world, and they have never been punished. They believe they can do whatever they want. So we must break this circle of impunity, not just for people in Ukraine, not just for people from other countries who have already suffered from war crimes, but in order to prevent a next Russian attack to the next nation. And this approach has to be used worldwide, because if we are fighting for justice, we have to fight for justice globally. We live in a very interconnected world, and you can't build a paradise, even being an island, if another part of the globe is bleeding.
First, hope comes from action, right? I should be in jail. Rappler should have been shut down. But despite the fear, despite a brutal drug war of our former president, Rodrigo Duterte, Rappler is thriving. And I'm still out and about. I still have to ask the Supreme Court for approval to travel. That's the last of 11 criminal charges that I had to face, 11 arrest warrants in a little over a year. Hope comes from action. You take one step and the next step and the next step. And actually the hardest, the most interesting part in that journey is that our lawyers told me that, we're crazy, that you should duck, that, well, Rappler continued. And the man who tried to jail us was arrested in March this year, charged with crimes against humanity, and he is at the Hague awaiting trial. Impunity ends. We've done this a lot, right? Like, we know what we're each going to say. But it's horrible, right? It's horrible.
I reflected about this a lot because sometimes it seems to me that I repeated the same messages, not hundreds of times, but thousands of times. But I reflected about this and I told to myself, if Bible told the same things for millennia,
yeah,
so probably it's okay for me to repeat some important messages for thousands of times.
I think this is the first time our Filipino audience heard this, and that is, you have to say it, because someone new in the audience will not have heard. And all we need in a room full of 350 people, if we can move 100, oh my God, that's jackpot. Oh my gosh. Except she always makes me cry.
People inspires me. I know from my own experience that when you can't rely on the international system of peace and security, you can still rely on people. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things, and ordinary people change history. Ukrainians is a bright example. 3 years ago, when large-scale war started, Putin and international partners were confident that we have no potential to resist because Russia is so enormous opposing power. Russia was 11th economy in the world, has nuclear power, veto in UN Security Council, oil and gas, which means a lot of money. And that my native city Kiev just would fall in 3 or 4 days. But here we are. We're still fighting for our freedom and human dignity. We still have a chance. We are proving that people, ordinary people, fighting for their freedom and human dignity are stronger than the entire authoritarian Russian machine. I know that Ukraine is not just one hot spot in the globe, that there are a lot of other countries where people in that exactly moment are fighting for freedom, for justice, for human dignity. And my main message is that your fight, it's our fight. Because you're fighting for something which has no limitation in national borders, like freedom. And there are another thing which has no limitation, it's human solidarity.
The technology that we use encourages the worst of who we are. But I believe people are basically good. That's what I've learned in all of this. I mean, look, if President Duterte hadn't tried to jail me, hadn't tried to shut down Rappler, I would never have met Amal Clooney, and I would never have met George. The kindness of strangers. So many people who themselves were afraid helped us, right? So fear is real. And what my co-founders and I did was we made one rule. There were 4 co-founders of Rappler. Only one of the 4 of us can be afraid at a time. So we passed the fear. It worked. We stayed alive through the 6 years and we're still here, right? So you keep going. You keep moving because this time matters.